Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we'll be covering... Before I go further, this review will contain spoilers, so if you're worried about that, click off. Or if you don't care, then stick around, up to you. We'll start right in with the plot setting stuff. This iteration of the Fantastic Four is set in Earth 828, based on Jack Kirby's birthday, and is set in a 60s/70s retro-futurism vibe, which I really love for these characters. I think the setting and the overall concepts in this movie, I think this is the best adaptation we've gotten of them in film so far. And I really would have loved to see a lot more of this world. However, as we're going to get into a bit later, this movie was really stunted by the studio. In this version of Fantastic Four, they've already been established heroes for 4 years. We don't actually get to see their origin story in this movie. It's covered in an opening montage, which in concept I think is fine, but in the execution of how this is done, I think the way Superman handles an established hero is a lot better, where it kind of just catches you up to speed on what's important for this movie. Whereas this montage it feels like you're catching up on a show, and it's like this is previously on, and it tells you a bunch of the stuff they've done. However, we don't really get to see any of that, and that's due to the studio actually cutting out a lot from this. Like, obviously in the trailer we had John Malkovich as Red Ghost, and there's emphasis put on him during the opening montage and during one of the post-credit scenes. In the final product, he's actually not included in the movie at all, and I feel like that's something the movie really suffers from, is the studio tampering with the movie's final product so much. Obviously, we know now that the movie's supposed to have 20 to 30 minutes more, which, depending on the contents of that, I feel like really would have helped some of the stuff in this movie, such as some members of the Fantastic Four, which I'll get into once we cover the characters. This movie covers the Fantastic Four with the birth of Franklin, as well as battling the threat of Galactus for the first time, which the impression I got from this movie is this is the biggest threat they have faced yet. As, again, back to the opening montage, we hear that they fought Red Ghost, they fought Mole Man, who is briefly in this movie, and then in the post-credit scene it's referenced that Puppet Master is someone that they've battled. But general plot setting stuff aside, let's get into the characters. Starting with the Fantastic Four here, we'll start with Pedro Pascal, who played Mr. Fantastic in this movie. I think personality-wise, like character portrayal, he did a great job. I wasn't as worried for his character's portrayal as I was about Joseph Quinn's, but I think he really nailed it for the portrayal of Mr. Fantastic. I think he nails the logical, sort of really smart guy vibe that Mr. Fantastic should have. However, maybe it's just because I'm used to the one from 2004/2005. I don't think Pedro really visually looks like the character, and I don't think visually as well. Obviously, this is, as we know now, again, this is due to the budget. I don't think that he used his powers in wacky enough ways as the character would in the comics, because I'm sure if you're familiar with the Fantastic Four at all, if you've been online, everyone always talks about bro, this guy can't do anything normal, like he's always got to stretch. And anytime that Mr. Fantastic uses his powers in this movie, they're only really used in a sense like Spider-Man. Like during the lab scenes, he uses them to stretch across and grab something real quick. During the final counter, when they're fighting Galactus, you're just using it to swing up onto buildings and stuff. He doesn't really use it in any ways that only he would be able to. Like, you could easily swap him out with Spider-Man during these stretching parts, and nothing would change. The only thing that needs him, that makes him necessary to be here, is his brain power. Maybe it's just because I'm used to the 2004/5 versions, but Pedro Pascal, due to how much more squared his head is, he doesn't really visually look like a person that would stretch. He doesn't look lanky enough. But I'm not going to cut that against him. As you know, with interviews and stuff, he wanted to do a lot more with this character, but the studio cut down on him for it and was like, oh, you can't do this. You want to do like a transatlantic accent. But the studio told him he can't do that. Like, they basically tampered with the movie a lot for the final product we ended up getting. But obviously we're going to have them return in Doomsday, so I'm not going to bash him too much visually for the character. I think he did a great job portraying the character. Next, we have Joseph Quinn playing Human Torch, who I think, again, had a great portrayal of the character. I think he did better than Chris Evans' portrayal in the 2004/5 versions. However, visually, there's some frames, obviously the one that everyone knows, probably if you've been online, and he just really does not look the age to play this character. Obviously, Johnny, like Human Torch, isn't supposed to be a really like young person like Spider-Man. But like for me personally, when I picture him, he's kind of like this early/mid 20s. Like he's a younger guy compared to the rest of them. Obviously, he's Invisible Woman's younger brother, and I think he portrays the character better than Chris Evans did. However, I think Chris Evans visually looks better for the character because I love how they made him actually smart in this movie. I love that they actually give him a passion for space, and he's not just there by association because he's related. I love that they actually characterized him so much better in this movie. I think he's one of the highlight parts. But again, I think it's just one of those things that I need time to get used to him playing the character. So we'll see again once Doomsday comes around. Especially the whole subplot with him and Silver Surfer. I really love how he translated her language and he figured it out, and especially how they really changed him from just being I like women. Like he actually did stuff, and I really appreciated that they did that in this movie. Also, lastly, I want to add for Human Torch is I think visually his powers did not look the best at times. There was a handful of points where he was flamed on, and the fire looks like a TikTok filter. If I can find it, I'll have a little video on screen now or something with it, but it just does not look good at points. Invisible Woman, I don't really have anything bad to say about her, actually. I think she did really great. Vanessa Kirby was great casting as the character in this movie. She visually looks like who I would imagine the character, as well as characterization mostly. I think she was great. The only part that I wasn't really a fan of is when she's having the argument with Reed. Obviously, she's a mother, but I just feel like it was a little bit out of character. Because obviously Reed is a very logistical person, and he's saying like, oh, like giving up Franklin would be ethical in the in the way that you're saving the whole planet by just losing one life. When she snaps it, she's like, oh, like I hate you for being you sometimes, and I just felt like that was very out of character for Invisible Woman to say. But at the same time, I understand what she's saying. I just kind of wish it was in like a little bit of a different context, because I just don't imagine the characters interacting in that sense. Visually, her powers look great. I think everything about her powers, she got to use them quite a bit. She used them in beneficial ways. Obviously, there's the whole black hole space sequence, which I personally think was easily the best part of the movie, is the whole space sequence. Everything when they're in space, I think, is flawless. It's great. Everything with Silver Surfer was really cool, but I'll get more on her in a moment. But I think Invisible Woman was easily the most well-rounded character in this movie, and I hope that the other members of the Fantastic Four can kind of get the same treatment in Doomsday. Lastly, for the Fantastic Four, we have The Thing, which unfortunately I don't really have much to go off of, and it's not because I didn't like him, it's because he literally doesn't have much to go off of. For example, he has a subplot with Natasha Lyonne's character, and there's a total of 3 scenes of them together. The first one doesn't even really serve as one of them together. I think that scene only exists there to show that he's kind of good with kids, so that he could serve as the uncle for Franklin later in the movie and going into the future of this. The second one, they don't even interact, and it also brings in more of the subplot of him like being disgusted with how he looks, and kind of like the internal battle of his character, which is usually what is done for this character. And I didn't think they were going to do it going into the movie at first, but I was excited seeing this scene, and then they don't use it for anything. It's not even brought up. And then lastly, we have the scene at the church where he goes to visit her during when it's like the end of all times and stuff, and he's like, oh, look, I just wanted to see you. And it's sweet in concept, but I have no reason to care about why he would want to see her, because they didn't do anything on screen together. And I think either, obviously, I feel like there was supposed to be more in that deleted content, especially there's a scene when everything starts going crazy at first, and he's watching the news in the Baxter building, and then it cuts to him outside, and there's like a group of people that run by like, oh, we have families too, and then it just cuts to him back in the Baxter building in the living room again, and also he says like it's getting crazy out there to nobody, but obviously there was supposed to be a scene of him going to visit her, I'd assume, during that point, and I don't understand why they would cut it. Like, I feel like they should have cut out everything involving her character, or obviously should have fleshed her out more, because in the state that she's in right now, it's just such a random thing to be there. But visually, I think that thing looked great. Obviously, we got to see Ben Grimm's piloting skills. I also think that Eban did a great job at voicing the character. I really liked everything about this portrayal of the Thing. I like that he took inspiration from the Alex Ross look and like the more classic look in general, but I just really wish we had more to go off of for his character, so I'm really hoping for Doomsday that we get to see more of him. Getting into the antagonists here, we have Silver Surfer and Galactus. Silver Surfer I think was great. I loved every scene she was in. Julie Gardner does a great job. Also, she's in Weapons, which is probably going to be 2 back-to-back hits, so great for her, but I think she did a great job of portraying this version of Silver Surfer, especially during the whole black hole sequence. I think it was so cool when she does the surfing on the black hole. I think towards the end too, when Johnny I don't know why I keep switching between the names of them, but when Human Torch translates her language and it's her, she flies up over the clouds and it's just like her silhouette in the moon and the screams all below her, I think is one of the best shots in the movie. And just every single scene she's in, I really love. It's just really, and visually, she looks really good. But again, there was a little bit of a weird point during the final battle when she sacrifices herself to get Galactus. Unlike the reflection on her forehead, the buildings are moving really fast, but then when she's actually surfing, it's like really slow behind her. But at that, like, I guess you could just boil that down to nitpicking or what, because I don't know anyone else who really noticed that. We also have Galactus, who obviously has the giant popcorn bucket that they used in the promotional material, and I think he was a great point in the movie. I think they really portrayed him nicely. However, I really wish they just made him a big guy, and I would have loved to see more of him to make him seem more threatening, because something this movie really loves to do is just tell us about stuff happening and not show us stuff happening. Similar to Thor Love and Thunder had this problem, and then the opening monsters of this movie, they tell us a bunch of stuff. But like we hear like Gore like killed all these gods and stuff, but we never actually really see it. We just see the remains. And that's what happens with this is obviously we see his ship destroy a planet, but I really would have liked to see more imposing the threat of him. And especially once he actually gets to New York, and it doesn't really seem like they gave him the ability to change his sizes as they give him the giant chair and stuff. Like, it kind of goes back and forth, because I really love like when his visor turns on, or like his eyes, it has like the really loud like sound, like it sounds really cool, and it like rumbles the theater basically every time that it happens. And I think it was a really cool, like intimidating sound, but I just feel there wasn't enough of him in the movie, which again could boil down to the runtime that was cut off from this. For pros, I have to say I really love the setting and the characterization of these characters for the most part, but also bundled with that is the con of I really wish we saw more of them. And that's really what I left the theater with the feeling of, is I really wish we saw more of these characters, because unfortunately the next project they're gonna be in is Doomsday, and they're not really gonna get to be a focus of that. As we see in the credit scene, we have the reveal of Doctor Doom, who, first of all, as anyone who follows my Twitter knows, I'm really not a fan of the casting of Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom. I'm not going to retread the same tracks here that I've already talked about multiple times too much, but I just think it's a really bad, like, cash grab, nostalgia bait thing to do. I'm really I'm looking forward to that movie due to how bad I feel it's going to be. But I don't love, we're shown the reveal of Doctor Doom for the first time, confirmation that he's in this universe, which is also a problem I have, bundled with the movie showing Latveria is empty, and they never once mentioned Doom in this movie. And originally, I thought, due to the trailers and stuff, we had a lot of stuff that was obviously cut. And I feel originally the movie was supposed to be like a double antagonist thing, where Galactus was supposed to be kind of like the poster villain, and then Doom was supposed to be like the right below that, like kind of the mastermind of it. Because in universe, this is the first time we've seen Doom, and he isn't posed as a threat. Which I had a friend who said like, oh, it's because he's showing himself as more like vulnerable kind of to Franklin to kind of manipulate his powers. But to the audience, I had people coming out of that thought that was Doctor Strange. There's a problem there if you don't make the next big bad seem like a big bad. And I just ultimately had a lot more cons coming out of this movie than I did pros. The only real pros I have is I like the characterization and the settings, but cons, I feel the movie was way too short, which I can't put against the movie, as we know it's the studio's fault, as well as cutting out a lot of stuff. Like there was the interview that had Vanessa Kirby saying there's supposed to be a lot more development between her and Mole Man's character to kind of explain him better. Obviously, we were supposed to have Red Ghost, and as well as like the editing mistakes and Natasha Lyonne's character barely being in it and stuff. I feel like it really would have helped, as in the second post-credit scene is like the intro to the animated show. I think it would have been really like fun and campy if they released a mini series on Disney Plus or something of the sorts, that each episode covered them on an adventure against one of the different villains. It would have helped fleshing out these characters better, either if this was before, because then the montage would have made more sense as well, and the montage would have served as the, oh, this is basically everything we're catching you up on, because it's stuff you saw in the show if you watched it. But I really hope they release a little mini-series now about that to further help develop these characters, because I really would like to see more of them, but the movie just didn't deliver that to me. So unfortunately, Fantastic Four, I do have to say, was not so fantastic, and I currently have it at kind of just fine, at a kind of bouncing between, depending on how I'm thinking of the movie at the time. I have it at a 1.5 to a 2, as I really love the concepts here, but the execution just really is not there in the final product for the movie. But thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below, let me know what you think. If you want to get in contact with me, I'm on Instagram and Twitter. Best way to reach out to me is on there. You can DM me, you can comment on my stuff, anything. I'm most active on Twitter. But thank you all for watching. I will see you all in the next one.